Okay, we are now live. I'm going to give a little bit of time for some people to come in, but welcome everyone. Yes. Okay, we don't have any people right now, but normally they will come and the notifications will pop up. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you very, very much for being with us today on this International Migrants Day. We know that Saturday at 4 p.m. is not the best time, so we really thank you for being with us today. And because this is a special day, we are thank you even more because we are holding this special Migrant Woman Reality Watch in honor of Adelina Alma Sejdini with the Sisters of Resistenza Femminista that I will introduce afterwards, and also Chiara Parolin, who is an Italian lawyer and actually a member of the European Network of Migrant Women. So we wanted to mark this International Migrants Day so we could remember together the life and activism of Adelina Alma Sejdini. Adelina was an Albanian migrant woman in Italy. She was an abolitionist activist, and her life was tragically ended recently in Italy as she was failed by the state authorities to be protected and supported as a victim of exploitation and trafficking. So Adelina took her own life on the 6th of November of 2021, so just about a month ago. Previously, she was trafficked for sexual exploitation at the age of 17. She was kidnapped in Albania and taken to Italy, where she suffered for 4 years in prostitution until she reported her pimps and traffickers to the police. And thanks to her, more than 40 people were arrested, and many of these were members of the Albanian mafia. And thanks to her, several sexually exploited women were released from the hands of pimps and traffickers. So we thank her deeply, deeply for that. After this, Adelina collaborated many times with the Italian police in the fight against trafficking for sexual exploitation in Italy. In 2014, she joined the abolitionist struggle alongside our sister of Resistenza Femminista, whom we have here today with us. They will tell us a bit more about that in a little while. I think it's also very important to say that in 2015, Adelina actually wrote a letter to the organization Amnesty International, because back then they had published this paper on sex work. And in this letter, she explained that prostitution is always a violation of human rights and could never consider work. In 2017, she also created the Libera la Vita campaign, so Free Life campaign, in which she spoke to sex buyers who sought out women and girls on the streets, and in which she showed them that they were fully aware that women were enslaved by trafficking networks when they went, to prostitution places and to prostitutional services, so to speak. And I am mentioning this campaign because the European Network of Migrant Women, we supported this campaign proudly in 2017, and we continue to support all the survivors of trafficking for sexual exploitation and prostitution. So basically today we are here to honor this incredible woman, this incredibly strong woman, with women who were also close to her, who knew her, and who accompanied her throughout her activism and struggles. So on behalf of the European Network of Migrant Women, I really want to thank you, Chiara and Liliam from Resistenza Femminista, and our member, Chiara Parolin, for being with us today and talking about this very difficult topic. It's also not by accident that we are holding this, this memorial for Adelina on International Migrants Day, because we want to make sure that we address trafficking and prostitution of women as one of the most gravest forms of male violence that is committed against migrant women and girls. Just in terms of technicalities, I ask you for your understanding because Liliam will be speaking in Portuguese and I will be translating. Both Chiaras are going to speak in English, so you will have no problem understanding, but we just ask a little bit of patience because we're doing this at very grassroots level, and we want Liliam to be able to express herself in the language that she prefers. So, welcome, bem-vindas todas hoje. I would ask you first in under 1 or 2 minutes if you could just present yourselves to the audience. So I will start with Chiara Parolin.
Good morning. I'm honored to be here today, and I want to thank you for the invitation. I'm Chiara. I'm an Italian lawyer, and I'm specialized in immigration law. And I deal with mainly with the victims of trafficking, women victims of trafficking. And today I speak about it.
Thank you, Chiara. The other Chiara.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Adriana. Thank you, the European Network of Migrant Women, for organizing this important event in memory of our sister, Adelina. And we're devastated by her tragic death, but it's extremely important for us to be here today to remember her. I'm Chiara from Resistenza Femminista. Resistenza Femminista is an organization fighting against the sexual exploitation of women and girls, and we are giving support to survivors of male violence, especially prostitution survivors. And many of us are survivors of different forms of male violence too: rape, domestic violence, pornography, and prostitution. And for this reason, we created a safe space to give support to each other and welcome other survivors. And we took inspiration from the feminist political practice of consciousness raising, in which women share the stories of oppression and create an authentic personal political relationship in the search for liberation. And we are collaborating with many national and international abolitionist organizations like Space International, among others. And we are working to raise awareness on the harms of prostitution and pornography, especially among young people. We have a website, we're active on social media, we translated 2 fundamental books, paid for by Richard Morans and The Pimping of Prostitution by Julie Binder. And these 2 books dramatically changed the debate in Italy on prostitution, and not only in feminist circles, but also among some of our politicians. And we are advocating for the Nordic model, and we did a network of abolitionist organizations to ask our politicians to introduce the Nordic model in Italy. Liliam, which is here, and is the representative of the survivors of our group, because not every woman can reveal her identity in this kind of activism, as it can be dangerous or too traumatic. And so Liliam is our voice, and we are so grateful to Liliam for her wonderful work she's doing with us. She's collaborating with many survivors of coming from different countries, especially from Germany, with Sandra Norak, for example, or Marie Merlinker, and just to name a few, and many from Latin America and so on. So it's really important that Liliam is with us today to remember Adelina.
Thank you so much for the three of you to be here today. I know because of the personal and professional connections that this conversation might be quite hard. So please feel free to take care of yourselves in the way that you know best. If you need to turn off your camera for any reason, we totally understand. If you need to step out, it's really up to you. I don't know the ways that you feel better within yourselves, but I totally respect it. You may need at some point to do just that, so please feel free. Liliam, eu estava só falando que como a conversa de hoje é bem difícil para vocês, que, por favor, você conhece as melhores formas de se autoajudar. Então, se você precisar de se retirar algum momento, de retirar sua câmera, o seu micro, por favor, faça como você quiser, tá bom? Okay. So basically, the 3 different women will touch upon Adelina's life in various forms. I have asked the 3 of them to prepare a little presentation or a little discussion on the topics that are dear to their hearts or what they want to touch upon. So basically, I've asked Chiara to talk about the work of Resistenza Femminista and how this work intertwine with Adelina, and if you could talk also a bit about, the any other thing that you think is relevant, or whatever you might want to bring today. So yeah, the floor is yours, Chiara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adriana. And Adelina was a sister and was a friend and an abolitionist activist. She was really a brave fighter. And before leaving us, she said, "Become my voice and give voice to what happened to me, so that all Adelinas can have what I didn't have, and that these things can never happen again." So this is what we are here for today, because we are and will always be her voice all together. We as sisters, because she joined us and our collective in 2014, but we as feminists, we have to be, united and remember Adelina in many occasions, because she was really a great activist, and her words and commitment is really fundamental. She joined our organization. We were a collective before, and we became an organization recently in 2014, and we did many political actions with her. Adelina, unfortunately, has been neglected and abandoned by our state, despite she always collaborated with our police and carabinieri, as you told before, Adriana. But unfortunately, in the last renewal of her resident permit to stay in Italy, it was written Albanian in the citizenship, and in addition to the untrue statement that she was working, and this means that she didn't have the possibility of having the disability benefit that she received for her illness, because she was affected by breast cancer. And in this way, she lost the possibility of having a council house as well. So this had thrown her into despair. Because first of all, returning to Albania was equivalent to a death sentence to her. And she said, "I have nightmares every night." She said that. And she wrote in her book, because she was in her book, Libera dal racket della prostituzione, free from the prostitution racket in English. And I want to read these two sentences because it's important. She said, "It's not possible to imagine going back to your own country when you have memories like this, heavy, painful. No, I won't go back to Albania, even if I'm dead, not even for 10 billion. So the state, our state, had the duty to protect her from the traffickers she has reported to the police, and from whom she has received death threats. But despite numerous pleas to the President of the Republic and a petition, she has been launched a petition to grant her the Italian citizenship, but she was ignored, completely ignored. And the day before her death, she assured me, because I called her, and she wanted to continue to fight. She wanted to continue to fight despite having been betrayed by the institution. And she told me that she wanted to denounce what had been done to her. So she assured me. And instead then, the day after, there was the Friday night, and the day after, instead, she killed herself, as we know. But until the end, she fought to demand justice, and not only for herself, but for all the women victims of the prostitution system, and for whom she had always worked since she rebelled against her traffickers. And she sent, as you remember, 40 criminals, 40 traffickers to prison, and she freed 10 slave girls, the youngest of whom was just only 14 years old. And as she wrote, she was subjected to all kinds of tortures, and not only by the traffickers who held her and the other girls in slavery, but also by the punters, by the rapists on the Italian streets. And so I want to remember Adelina as an activist. So we wrote a long article in which we remember all the action, but here I just want to remember some of them, some fundamental political action. First of all, her speech that she gave in our Senate, in our parliament, when she was ill in 2018. She was ill, and despite her illness, she decided, because she never spared herself for the fight in favor, in support of prostituted women, and she decided to give her testimony as well. And she said, I want to read her words. I want to, those who talk about legalizing brothel and so-called red zones. If I were still a slave today, I would be afraid that someone would throw a bomb at my family members. I would stay inside the brothel, so my traffickers would take the money, while the state would collect taxes. I, like any women, I speak as a former slave of prostitution, of the prostitution racket, expect those who represent the state, I'm referring to the institutions, the government, and those who have the power, to offer me decent opportunities. If I'm here today, is to tell you that personally I've suffered all kinds of tortures. And the ones I have suffered are being suffered by all the girls trafficked on Italian streets. Do something for these girls. Don't allow the slavery of prostitution to be legalized and brothels to be opened. If my doctor were to tell me tomorrow that I was going to die and ask me to make a last wish, I would say that my wish is to stop male demand for prostitution. I'm not just saying that, but I really mean it. You have to stop the demand, criminalizing punters because they are aware. So Adelina wanted, was in favor of the Nordic model. She fought for introducing the Nordic model in Italy. Because in this campaign you mentioned in 2017, the campaign that you supported as European Network of Migrant Women, and I thank you really from the bottom of my heart for this support that was so important for Adelina. She was absolutely enthusiastic about this because you translated this campaign in 8 languages, which was amazing. And this campaign, the name of this campaign was Libera la Vita, Free Life. And these are her words. I'm Adelina, former victim of trafficking, a slave of the prostitution racket, free thanks to the state police of the Questura of Varese. Thanks to my report, a large trafficking ring was broken up and about 40 traffickers were arrested. Together with my sister of Resistenza Femminista, I fight every day in support of the victims of sex trafficking, of women raped and forced into prostitution. I have often heard lately, also unfortunately from circles that call themselves feminists, use the term migrant sex workers to define migrant women prostituted on the streets. We strongly reject this because these women are instead slaves of the prostitution racket. The punters who go looking for paid rape on the streets are accomplished of this slavery. They know very well the women on the streets are forced into prostitution. I can prove it with my with these videos I made with a micro camera watch lent to me by a detective agency, in which I filmed myself while I pretended to prostitute myself and asked punters who stop a price of 70 euros. They answered that it's too expensive. Then I replied that if I don't bring the money home, my pimps will beat me up. And despite this, they insisted on the discount. It's clear then that the punters know very well that those women are slaves and they absolutely don't care. We need to launch an awareness campaign about how punters are aware that paying for a paid rape, to rape slaves on trafficking and the prostitution racket. Women who truly cry in silence. I, as a former slave, together with my sister Resistenza Femminista, want to stop the male demand for prostitution, and I invite everyone to join us against the proposal to legalize prostitution in Italy and ask Italy to adopt soon the Nordic model to really fight the sexual exploitation of women and girls. So her voice is strong and clear, and we are here today to remember that and to spread her message everywhere. And many things are obscure with respect to the circumstances in which she spent the last day of her life, and then and respect to her death, and that's the reason why we have Chiara here, our lawyer, and together with the organization Resistenza Femminista, we are investigating possible responsibilities for the decision that Adelina made, what pushed her to commit the suicide. And we demand truth and justice for her. And we believe that it's not a suicide, but a femicide. There are thousands of women who died because of prostitution in the world. And to have killed her are the traffickers, the rapists, the punters, and the state itself that has turned its back on her in the moments of greatest need. And her sacrifice is a political act of protest against the patriarchal domination that has its either expression in the prostitution system, and that is also manifested in this indifference of the institution that promise protection, but then abandon women, migrant women, disadvantaged women who have survived prostitution, and condemn them to poverty and social marginalization, and delivering them back into the hands of those same spames from whom they say they want to free them. So the loss of her life shows us that how the anti-trafficking system in Italy is totally insufficient. And we will do everything we can to prevent other sisters, other Adelinas, from being lost due to the guilty indifference of the state, and that the dream of a free life to which all girls who are trafficked and prostituted have a right is broken. We will always go forward so that survivors are guaranteed ways out and real support to overcome the trauma of the violence of prostitution, so that they can become independent and masters of their existence. And so we urgently need an abolitionist law that puts prostituted women at the center, or there will always be so many Adelinas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chiara, for your words and for presenting to the audience the woman that was Adelina. I think you touch upon a very, very important point. You know, the abolitionist law, it's not just about preventing women from entering into prostitution, but also supporting those who come forward, or at least those who don't want to come forward, they would have some kind of, you know, reparations for, I don't even know if there can be any reparations in this case, but some kind of, you know, accountability that what was done to them was a grave violation of human rights, to say the least, and that the state is indeed responsible of protecting those women. And it's not about individual organizations or individual women helping women in prostitution, but it's a state responsibility. And in the European Network of Migrant Women, we are, of course, abolitionists, and we fully support the Nordic model in all the countries in Europe, and we would hope worldwide. Normally, I was going to ask Liliam to intervene now, but Chiara Parolin, she needs to leave earlier today. And since we were talking about the, you know, state inaction and state responsibility, I think it's good that we switch to Chiara. Liliam, eu ia te pedir para falar agora, só que a Chiara, ela tem que ir embora daqui a pouco tempo. E como a gente estava falando agora da responsabilidade do Estado em relação às mulheres prostituídas, eu achei que a gente poderia trocar, se tá ok para você, tá ok? Ok. So it's okay for Liliam, so yes, Chiara, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are here today to remember Adelina. Adelina was a victim of sex trafficking. Adelina was forced into prostitution, and Adelina was a migrant woman. So Adelina is the demonstration of how trafficking prostitution and being a migrant woman are all sides of the same coin. Italy is a country of arrival for many migrant women, many of whom are victims of trafficking, and they come mainly from Nigeria, Romania, Bulgaria, and Albania. Just for explain, the girls and women who live in Nigeria before arriving in Italy have to cross Libya, where they suffer abuse and violence. If they manage to escape, they have to cross the Mediterranean Sea, and then they reach Italy. But in Italy, the difficulties do not end, because they must return to Madama. Madama is the woman who manages their exploitation, and they are forced again into prostitution. As regards trafficking from Eastern European countries, we know that recruitment of victims takes place with increasing effective methods. We know that, for instance, in Romania or in Albania, there are sentinels of traffickers who identify in advance girls, and they convince them to follow them by promising a job in Italy. And when they arrive in Italy, they are forced into prostitution, and the exploiters exert violent and total control on over these girls. But it is important to say that in Italy, Italy has an important tool to combat trafficking, and it is the Article 18 of the immigration law. Article 18 provides that a foreign citizen in danger and who is subjected to violence or severe exploitation has the right to a residence permit. The residence permit is issued if the victim denounces the exploiters, or if the victim chooses to start a social path. Italy has also ratified the Council of Europe Convention on the fight against trafficking. However, the crime of trafficking is scarcely contested in Italy. The convention, for example, provides for a period of reflection for victims, but Italian law does not expressly provide for these provisions. Police headquarters issue few residence permits to victims because they require victims to file a complaint against traffickers. And so the social path is therefore little used. And it happens that the victims are treated as irregular migrants and often receive a deported order. Also, training for the police and prosecutors is not widespread. And finally, in the recent years, the institutions have not been interested in the issue of trafficking and have weakened the system. In fact, victims have less protection, and traffickers have more and more power. But I want to underline that there are two aspects to be taken into consideration in order to combat trafficking. Early identification of victims of trafficking, both among asylum seekers and among migrants who are not asylum seekers. And the second point is the protection of victims of trafficking. We must guarantee the victims effective social integration, protection, and psychological support. we take it for granted that once women are out of trafficking or are out of prostitution, they are fine. But in reality, there is a long psychological work to be done to overcome the traumas they have suffered. And I would like to say that in order to achieve these objectives, politicians must first decide to adopt an abolitionist law on prostitution, because prostitution and pornography reduce the value of women and commodify their bodies. If we want to eliminate trafficking, we have to eliminate prostitution and the demand of prostitution. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. What is your experience as lawyer, as immigration lawyer, in terms of trafficking? Would you say that you are successful in your cases to getting the necessary guarantees for the women that you represent, or how does it work for you?
Only with asylum seekers, because, and they are mainly Nigerian women. They receive the status of refugee because Italian government recognized that the fact of being exploited is inside the Geneva Convention, so they can obtain the status of refugee. But for women who come from the East Europe, for example, Romania and Bulgaria women, they don't need a residence permit, and the police, the authorities don't look for them. They don't find them, and they are invisible prostitutes. I don't know if I explained what I want to say. Maybe Chiara can help me, because my English is really bad. And so they are not supported by the government. They are not supported by the social workers, because we don't know that they exist.
And then another question for the other Chiara. Since Chiara just said, that these women don't exist, you knew Adelina existed. She spoke out, so she made sure that the world knew, that Italy knew she existed for her fight. How was it to, accompany her in front of the Italian state, or in front, of the institutions? When she said, I exist, I am here because this happened to me, I am here because I don't want this to happen to other Adelinas like me or other women. How was it? How did you see the state action in regards to Adelina, or inaction in this case?
Yeah, it was extremely tough, extremely frustrating and painful, because unfortunately, as I said, it has been launched a petition to ask an Italian citizen. When I met her, because I met her in Florence in 2014, because her story is a sort of persecution, because she refused the Albanian citizenship. Because first of all, it was her relatives that refused the Albanian citizenship, so she didn't have, first of all, the Albanian citizenship, and of course, because of what happened to her in Albania, she absolutely didn't want the Albanian citizenship. She refused it because of the tortures that she experienced, because also of this traumatic, horrific experience with the Albanian police, because among her traffickers there was Albanian policemen as well. And so she didn't trust Albania, and she wrote that her country didn't trust her country at all, and she wrote that very clear in her book. And also during the years that she was part of our group and talked to us about it, of course she felt completely betrayed by her country, by Albania. So she wanted to be. She made a request to the Italian state not to be Albanian. So she preferred to have no citizen at all instead of being, Albanian, because it wasn't true, first of all. And in 2016, I helped her because here in Tuscany, they refused to write something different from Albanian citizenship. So she had this problem before as well, but we find a way to solve it because it was Questura di Foggia in the south of Italy who helped her, basically, who understood her problem and made this resident permit with 3x. They just put 3x. And in fact, sometimes she said, unlike someone from, a Martian citizenship, something ironic, she said that ironically because of this 3x. But 3x was better than Albanian citizenship because as you explained before, and as I said, that was like a death sentence for her because to be Albanian and without a job because she wasn't working, because of her illness, of course, she couldn't work. She was disabled, 100% disabled. She has been recognized 100% disabled. So it was really unbelievable that they wrote that she was working in her permit, resident permit. So basically, that's the reason why she was desperate, because that was that sentence means that she had to come back to Albania. And they didn't listen to us. So only in 2016, the police in Foggia helped her. But this time, everything happened very quickly between October and the first days of November. And she was in front of our Viminale to protest against this. It was a protest. But instead of listening to her, she obtained this document in which was written that she has to left Rome for a whole year. And so basically they ignore her request, they ignore her pleas, they ignore everything. So that's the reason why we are saying that we need urgently a Nordic model, because she didn't recognize that she was a victim. She was a victim of this crime, and yes, they recognize, but on the paper, but not in a practical way. They didn't help her, so not economically, not financially, and not even with the resident permit. So she was completely abandoned, neglected, abandoned, betrayed.
Thank you, Chiara. Chiara, Parolin, if at any moment you need to step out, please do without letting us know. You're free.
Thank you. And I want to add that if you are an undocumented migrant woman, you can't obtain any help from the government. And in Italy, there are many undocumented migrant women who need support.
Thank you, Chiara. Next year, we will have a European Network of Migrant Women event in Italy. So stay tuned for that, because Chiara will talk about these things over there, but we will publicize it on social media in due time. So stay tuned for that. Now I'm going to ask Liliam to talk about whatever she wants in the way that she prefers to give honor to her friend. So Liliam, eu vou te dar a palavra para você falar o que você quiser. Eu não sei como você prefere fazer a tradução. Você prefere fazer pausas, daí eu traduzo, ou você prefere que eu faça no final?
Para mim é igual. Você diz pausa e você fala, eu falo direto.
Okay.
Como você sentir melhor.
Okay. We are just deciding how to do this translation because our work is very grassroots in this way. But Liliam will start in Portuguese, and then if I need to pause, I will say and translate so that it's not very cut. Quando você quiser, Liliam, pode começar, se sinta à vontade.
Então, o meu começo é que eu pensei várias vezes como eu poderia começar a falar sobre o que aconteceu com a Adelina, né? Aí me veio isso dentro de mim, que foi aquilo que a Chiara Carpita falou quando quando me apresentando, que eu me mostro, que eu dou meu nome e dou meu rosto. Aí eu chego e falo para vocês, a gente que somos sobreviventes, que temos a força e a coragem de botar o nosso nome, botar nosso rosto, como a Adelina também, né? E no final a gente morrer, no senso que a Adelina, ela se matou. Aí você diz, aí você que foi uma sobrevivente e tá tendo a força de falar, de mostrar para o mundo aquilo que aconteceu, aí você para e pensa, porque pode ser como uma mensagem negativa. Olha só, ela colocou o rosto, ela fez tantas coisas e no final, quem ajudou ela? Como ela foi ajudada? Olha a polícia, ela teve aquele carinho todo, deu a todas as informações, tudo, e a polícia não ajudou ela. Aí, se você faz uma coisa, ou você morre porque te matam, ou você morre porque você não conseguiu, você não teve mais força. E essa é uma mensagem negativa. Então, vocês que ajudam, que lutam para a gente sobrevivente ser livre totalmente, deixando isso acontecer, vai fazer que a gente dê um passo atrás. E essa mensagem não podemos deixar. A gente tem que usar aquilo que aconteceu com a Adelina de entender o que a gente fazer, o que impedir essa outra Adelina. E quando isso aconteceu, eu entendi a Adelina, eu entendi ela, eu até falei para as minhas companheiras do Resistência Feminista. Para mim, naquele momento de dor e com tudo aquilo que a gente passa.
I'm just going to give her 1 second to reconnect. Here she is.
Está caindo sempre.
Eu vou traduzir
Você quer
primeira
traduzir
parte.
já essa parte?
Vou traduzir essa parte. So Liliam started with saying that.
Você já quer traduzir essa parte? Vai, porque está caindo, não sei como é mais, está caindo.
Vou traduzir.
Vai.
Okay. So when I first invited Liliam for this talk, she kept on thinking, what is the message that she wanted to see delivered today? And it also got her thinking when Chiara presented her, as you know, as the face of the survivor movement that Resistenza Feminist supports every day. So Liliam was kind of having this reflection while we were talking as, you know, Adelina was also the face of the survivor movement. She gave her name, she put her name forward, she was public, her identity was known. And yet she died. Yet there was this femicide that Chiara talks about. And it makes her think herself, Liliam, because she is a survivor herself, what is the aim sometimes, you know, what is the worst thing, what is the less worst thing that you can choose? Because you either give your face, give your name, fight tirelessly, and you die, or you either don't give your name, don't give your face, but you die internally. you die a silent death because of the things that happen to you. So the main question that Liliam was bringing here today is, it's not about, you know, talking or not talking, because both could mean death for the survivors, or for the women who dare to name male violence and who dare to fight against it. But she asks us how us as audience, or as people, as women who support victims of trafficking, who support women who went through prostitution, how can we use Adelina's death for the fight that she was taking on? How can we make it, I wouldn't say positive, but how can we take this energy and recycle it into something that Adelina really wanted to happen? Pode continuar.
Última coisa em português. Não pode somente repetir a última coisa em português para eu continuar no filo. Aonde você pegou? Porque a minha câmera foi embora, aí voltou. Em que parte foi que eu fiquei, que eu falei, que você escutou?
Você estava falando, você terminou por falar, então, se eu dou a cara, mas morro, mas se não dou a cara, eu
Entendi.
morro também, como que a gente pode utilizar essa energia para fazer o que a Adelina
Ok.
precisa?
Então, aí é essa coisa que não deve acontecer, não deve dar, porque eu, como sobrevivente, isso pode dar uma mensagem negativa, dizer assim, poxa, olha, ela deu a cara, ela falou, ela ajudou a polícia, mas ninguém ajudou ela. Por que não deram um documento? Era assim, depois de tudo, ela botou pessoas na prisão, salvou mulheres, e ela não mereceu ter uma cidadania para estar aqui tranquila e continuar a lutar. Ela mesmo doente, estava ali lutando, acreditando, protegendo as pessoas que ela via como anjos, e não foram capazes, tá entendendo, de ajudar ela. Então, uma sobrevivente vai dizer assim, então espera. Então, depois de tudo aquilo que eu sofri, ou eu vou falar, ou eu vou morrer porque o meu cafetão vai me pegar e me matar, ou então eu vou me matar porque ninguém vai me ajudar, porque eu entendo, quando aconteceu isso, eu entendia cada pensamento de Adelina, porque eu já pensei já no suicídio, eu sei como é isso, sabe? Então, naquele momento ela deve pensar, poxa, eu recebi o papel de mandar embora para a Albania. Se eu for para a Albania, as pessoas, os mafiosos que eu denunciei, vão me matar, mas aos poucos. Então, eu prefiro me morrer sozinha da minha mão, porque eu não vou ter toda essa dor e morrer ao longo tempo, sabe? E outra coisa, aí a mensagem dela, a gente tem que aprender para não deixar para as outras sobreviventes, para as outras meninas que ainda estão passando por essa situação, não ver isso. Sim, todos nós erramos, mas levamos isso como um aprendizado e a voz dela, que isso não aconteça. Por que tem que fazer tanta coisa como quando ela está morta? Porque muitos falaram a Adelina e de dar uma cidadania ela morta. Por que não fez tudo quando estava viva? Provou uma vez, prova duas, prova três. Ela merecia, ela lutava, ela dava cara. Então, se a gente dá cara, e com a ajuda de outras associações, se elas não com nós juntas, como podemos continuar? Sabe? Porque a gente dá para vocês aquilo, para as pessoas entenderem que tortura é essa vida, que trauma deixa. E ela confiou em todos nós. E no final ela morreu sozinha, sabe? Ela morreu sozinha. E ninguém, nem os policiais, ninguém. Ela falou, ela pediu, ela deu até um aviso. Eu estou aqui, eu estou andando. Cadê? Não tem ninguém aqui, porque não desceu ninguém. Ela estava ainda esperando que alguém descesse e procurasse ela. Mas não, ela estava só, não tinha nenhum policial, não tinha ninguém. Aí como podemos, a gente sobrevivente, dizer assim, pô, eu estou nessa luta, eu dou minha cara, meu nome, mas no final, olha o que acontece, eu vou morrer de todo jeito, é isso? é que a morte é a única saída da nossa liberdade desse inferno. Você quer traduzir essa?
Vou traduzir, se você me permite. Yeah, Liliam was just following up on what she previously told us, that she struggles a lot with the negative impact that this may have on the survivors who have not dared to come forward, because of what explained before. You really have to choose between both situation, and none is really ideal, or none really takes you out of that pain that you experienced. And Liliam simply cannot understand how they didn't give her citizenship, and how they didn't give her access at least to a legal document to stay in Italy, because she did everything by the book. She denounced her traffickers. She helped put members of the Albanian mafia in prison, even when she was sick. So when she was struggling with cancer, she did this for the struggle, and yet nobody was there to help her. And Liliam repeats this several times, that Adelina died alone, and she herself says that she can relate a lot, and she can understand what led her to commit suicide, because she knows deeply inside, as a survivor of this kind of violence, how it feels. She herself has contemplated suicide many times. So she really wants us to understand that it is an understandable step that Adelina took, not only because she was, out of options, but because nobody really knows what is the violence and the trauma that women carry with prostitution and trafficking, not even the association. So she understands, because she has been through the same. And yeah, she just wishes that Adelina wasn't alone. There was nobody to help her. So she really struggles with this idea, the image that this gives to women who have survived this but are still in silence, because it doesn't go, it's not a bright future that is depicted for them. Pode continuar, Lili.
E eu não vi a ajuda desses policiais. Ninguém estava lá. Aí, quando aconteceu, Chiara Carpita me ligou para mim, ela chorou muito e dizia: por quê? Por que ela não pediu ajuda? Por quê? Eu entendi isso também, Adriana, porque ela não pediu, porque, olha, eu posso falar isso porque é uma coisa que está acontecendo comigo. A gente passa por tantos problemas, aí tu tá sempre ali a pedir ajuda, sabe? A sempre pedir ajuda, porque tu não tá conseguindo, tá entendendo? Aí tem um momento que tu te bloca e que tu não quer pedir mais, porque tu te sente vergonha. Tu te sente vergonha, te sente como uma falida, sempre pedir, sempre ajuda. Aí eu falei: claro, Chiara, eu entendo ela. Ela já, porque a gente, e principalmente daquilo que a Chiara falava sempre para mim, das ajudas que faziam, tá entendendo? Mas um dia a gente se cansa, porque a gente quer ser independente, a gente quer ter uma vida normal pelas nossas pernas. Ela não conseguiu, como é que ela poderia conseguir? Eu que tenho um documento, tá difícil, imagina ela que não tinha um documento, como poderia trabalhar? Como poderia fazer uma vida independente? Aí, quando você chega nesse momento, nesse limite da tua vida, que você não conseguiu, e você, como é que se diz, se cansa de pedir ajuda, aí você para, você, como é que se diz, dá aquela pausa e diz: não vou mais, porque você tem medo de continuar, as pessoas se cansar de você e te abandona, e normalmente muitos faz isso. Algumas associações te usam e depois te deixam, tá entendendo? E a gente não é assim, não é com os 10 anos de tortura, em uma semana você vai conseguir ter tudo e ter tuas asas e voar. Não é assim, sabe? Então, eu falei para Chiara Carpita: tranquila, você fez, porque ela se sentiu mal, ela chorava. Eu entendo, como outras associações tentou também ajudar ela, sabe? Mas um dia a gente cansa, porque aquilo que a gente tem, aquele trauma dentro, toda aquela situação precisa de um longo tempo. E a gente começa a sentir como se fosse um peso, sabe? Como se fosse alguma coisa que é. E como eu já tive várias vezes pensamentos de suicídio. E quando isso aconteceu com a Adelina, a primeira coisa que eu falei para as meninas foi: ela foi corajosa. As meninas ficaram chateadas por começar a minha palavra, mas é porque foi o único modo da sua liberdade. Porque ela tentou, confiou no policial, tentou, e ela fez: eu não vou voltar para aquele meu país, porque eu sei o que é que eu vou passar. E a minha liberdade foi a morte. Então, a gente luta, faz tantas coisas, nós abolicionistas que lutamos pelo modelo nórdico. É com o final que tem que ser, a última saída de uma sobrevivente, porque a Adelina, ela é vítima. Eu sou uma sobrevivente, porque eu passei, mas estou aqui. Mas quantas agora? Tem que ter outra Adelina para poder, como é que se diz, para acontecer essas coisas agora, para as pessoas poder, como é que se diz, entender que nós precisamos do tempo juntas, de ter, como é que se diz, a oportunidade de dar o tempo das asas crescer, porque não compra assim uma asa e coloca e tu voa, tu é preciso do teu tempo. Quer traduzir aqui? Aí assim eu faço uma pausa.
Assim, pode tomar um copo d'água, relaxar um pouco. Yes, so I apologize if the translation, I mean, there's just so much emotion and rawness in Liliam's voice and her accounts, and I really am sad that I cannot, justly portray what her words are and what she is today, but I will honestly try my best. So Liliam is talking about this concept, of being a survivor, and the fact that a lot of people ask themselves, why didn't Adelina ask for help? And this is something that for survivors of the system of prostitution is very difficult, because Liliam herself sees herself in that position, that sometimes all they can do is ask for help because their wings have been cut, and because mostly the tactics of the pimps and traffickers is to disable any kind of, not only bodily but mental autonomy of women. So it makes it very hard for women to take basic decisions, or just to know where to shop for a certain thing. So there's also always that struggle for independence, and survivors, they're also tired of asking for help, because they need to deal with their own traumas and their own lives. And this asking for help of organizations, of other women is very heavy, because what they want is to be as independent as any other women. So the trauma from prostitution, it takes a long time to heal. She also mentions the fact that survivors, they need to be between themselves, they need to have time together, they need to have time to build their wings that were cut off. And she believes, and even she herself says this, that there were a lot of sisters or friends who didn't understand when Liliam says that Adelina found freedom in her death, but as a survivor, she believes in a way that she did, because she did everything in life to help her situation and to help the situation of so many other migrants and victims of this kind of torture, that it was kind of obvious for her, or in the least understandable, why Adelina would do such a thing. She also says that she is a survivor because she is here and she is able to be talking to us today, but that Adelina was a victim because she is not among us today to tell her story, and she fell victim not only to the pimps and traffickers, but to the Italian state and to the authorities that had to protect her and didn't assist a person that was in danger. So yes, Liliam, pode.
Então, E depois, na sua morte, aí eu comecei a ver na internet pessoas publicando foto, falando, usando a Adelina, e era tanta coisa que me vinha até da vomitar, que eu escrevi para as meninas de resistência e disse: olha, se um dia eu morrer, não deixa eles vender meu corpo, a minha imagem, a minha luta do modo que estão fazendo, não deixa. Porque tem pessoas, olha, a Adelina tem associações que lhe pediu ajuda e eles negaram dinheiro para ela, negaram coisas para ela, sabe? E no final, quando ela morre, o que eles fazem? Usaram. Tem aqueles que usaram, Adelina, se foi, e outras, Adelina, sex workers. Ela nunca foi, ela odiava esse nome. Ela nunca foi, ela repudiava, sabe? Porque é uma coisa que ela não aceitava de ser chamada assim. E aí coloca sexual, que eu vou colocar, eu vi também escrito, se a prostituição fosse um trabalho, ia proteger aonde? Ia ser ainda mais escrava, ela ia ser torturada, mesmo com câncer, com a doença, e amarrar ela numa cama, e ela ia ter, enquanto a vagina é quente, ela ia estar lá. Sabe, me desculpa a palavra. E eu falei para as meninas, se acontecer alguma coisa comigo um dia, eu morrer por qualquer outra coisa, não deixa eles comercializar, porque essas pessoas que foram hipócritas foram igual a um cafetão, sabe? Que usou, mesmo depois da sua morte, a sua imagem, vendendo para se mostrar as pessoas do bem ou uma associação do bem, só para ter sua vitrine bem ampliada, mas na realidade não fez nada porque ela está morta. Ela está morta. Tá entendendo? Então o que tem que fazer agora? Fazer que não exista outras Adelinas. Lutar que isso não tenha, que dar uma proteção para as mulheres, ter paciência, ajudar realmente economicamente, não receber somente dinheiro da não sei onde, não fazer nada. A gente precisa, sim, o dinheiro é a coisa principal, infelizmente, porque você precisa de casa, você precisa para a escola. Se não fosse resistência feminista, eu estaria sem casa, sem meus filhos, eu teria já me suicidado. Tá entendendo? E nenhuma outra, que algumas já que eu conheci, fazia aquelas pequenas coisas. Tem uma que somente fazia só publicidade, mas não fez nada para mim. Nada. Só falava. E por isso que eu entendo a Adelina. Eu entendo ela e como. Porque não é fácil. Você lutando, você fazendo. Ai, quantas tem que ter agora? Sabe? Quantas tem? Pode traduzir assim, eu faço pausa.
Mhm. Liliam is talking about the post-death of Adelina and how from what I understand, you can correct me, Chiara, if you think I'm saying something that is not, but that the Adelina's death was severely co-opted by the pro-prostitution lobby in Italy.
Yes, true.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Liliam was saying that if I ever die, please don't let them use my body and my image, just as they are doing right now with Adelina. And she denounces those organizations that Adelina asked help to, but never did they help her. And those same organizations are either talking about Adelina as a sex worker, which is a term that Adelina hated above all things, because she said that she was not a worker. She was not a sex worker. She was a victim of the trafficking for sexual exploitation and the prostitution system, which don't exist without the other. And that's why also she wrote that letter to Amnesty International. And on the other side, the pro-prostitution lobby kind of recycled her death and said that this would never have happened if prostitution had been legal in Italy. And that is against everything that actually Adelina fought for. They are, I don't know how to say it in English, but they are polluting the image and everything that she fought so hard for. And Liliam says about this that even those individual and organizations that do this, they are exactly the same as pimps and traffickers who violate everything about these women. So these organizations are really no much better than them. And then she jumps back to her personal side, and she says that she had the same, because she asks, if I die, please don't let something like this happen to me. And if it weren't for Resistenza Femminista, she may not even be here today, because she wouldn't have a place to live, food on her table, and maybe she would have chosen what Adelina chose. I don't know if you want to jump in, Chiara, because I saw you took off your mic.
Yeah, only something about this this attempt of the prostitution lobby of using Adelina's death. And in 2000, and thank you, Liliam, for saying that, because it's absolutely important, because we are remembering Adelina, and Adelina would have been furious about it, because she fought against the prostitution lobby, and she decided to participate to an assembly in Rome in 2016, April 2016, and in which she gave her testimony. She told a story about what happened to her on Italian streets, and she asked to the women, to the feminists present there, because we are talking about feminist movement called Non Una Di Meno, which is a movement in Italy, not only of women, but also of men, LGBT, and so on. She gave her testimony, and she asked, please don't use the term sex workers. And in particular, she stressed migrant sex worker, but sex worker and sex work in general, because she said prostitution is not a job, it's never a job, it's torture, it's rape. So don't use this term, please. And I'm here to say a strong no to the legalization of prostitution, which is the legalization of slavery. And I say, yes, the solution here is only the Nordic model and not the German model. She talked about, for example, the German model, the decriminalization or legalization of full decriminalization of prostitution. And she said that she was absolutely contrary to it, because it was the final betrayal to all the prostituted women and the migrant women trafficked on Italian streets. So this speech has been censored by the Non Una Di Meno. So basically they decided not to publish her speech on their website. And instead, there was this really cold, they were really cold. They didn't express any kind of solidarity to her, were extremely cold and detached. So that was extremely painful. We have the video, you can watch the video when Adelina, with Adelina's speech on our website. We republish it after what happened, because after her death, instead they wrote that they would have dedicated the 25th of November to her death, and they tried to cover the fact that she was an abolitionist. They try to cover this, and instead they just say something against our state and the fact that she was migrant, that was poor. But they said instead that only with the legalization of prostitution, Adelina would have had rights. And instead, because in Italy prostitution is not legal or fully decriminalized, that's the reason why Adelina was poor or with no resident permit and so on, which is absolutely a nonsense. Because of course, with the legalization of prostitution, as Adelina said, would have been worse since the beginning, And so it's really important that we are here to tell the truth and to in our memory to quote our words, because they are trying to cover the truth and manipulate.
And how did Adelina find herself in such an assembly? Did she come as an act of resistance She
Yeah,
knew.
yeah.
Okay.
She came there as our representative. She was really brave because she was perfectly aware that there were pro-sex work, but she decided, she talked with us, and she said, no, I want to go because I want to explain to them they are feminists. So she was completely, surprised. She was upset that feminists support, the system of prostitution, that they're asking for the legalization of slavery, of torture. And she was so upset that she said, no, I want to go there. I want to explain to her face by face, what happened to me, and that they can use this term sex work and do what they're doing. And so it was her decision. She was extremely brave. And but unfortunately, instead, I decided to give a voice to a collective of so-called sex workers and allies. And so that was their way of welcoming her. And so that they replied to her with this collective. And of course, they said exactly the contrary of what Adelina said, and they insulted migrant women. She was furious because they said, oh, we prefer to be whores instead of being, nurses for elderly people, which is basically many migrant women in Italy are doing this work. This work of care, of looking after elderly people. So she was really furious, and she wrote a short article against this speech that I gave. So basically, she was extremely brave, but they didn't publish her speech. Basically, we published it, but they didn't. So, and after that, there's ENoMW have this position on prostitution, which is absolutely pro-sex work, and this was a very serious. This was an attack, basically, and it happened with the presentation of Rachel Mora's book in 2017. Again, the same people, the same collective attacked us while Rachel was telling her, tragic story of sexual exploitation since she was very young, at 15 years age, and they attacked her. There was a very violent attack, and they were all upset about it.
Mm-hmm. It seems just absolutely crazy to me that in two instances that you just described, that these two women who are actually, the pro-sex work lobby is always saying, don't talk on our behalf, don't say this. But for the women who can talk on their own behalf because they have lived through this, they either censor them or attack them, which is just very much male techniques of, male violence. And they say non una di meno, which actually means not one less, roughly translated, yet not addressing the reality of prostitution, which is where most women die, is just a complete internal dissonance. And thank you, Liliam and Chiara, for bringing this.
Posso só falar uma coisa bem rapidinho?
Claro, claro.
Obrigada. Aquilo que eu quero deixar um recado é que de uma que passou muitas coisas, uma também que já pensou muitas vezes em se matar. Aí eu pergunto a vocês que lutam pra gente, porque eu agradeço para todas vocês que fazem isso por nós. Mas por que vocês fazem as coisas quando nós estamos mortas e não como estamos vivas? Por quê? Porque a gente vai ser pensada, falar das nossas causas, que chega até no parlamento a falar sobre nós como estamos mortas. Por que não da viva? Ainda viva não temos valores? Somente morta e, a coitada, passou tanto e morreu? É isso ser feminista que ajuda as outras mulheres a andar, a crescer, a voar. A Adelina queria somente uma vida normal. Ela não pediu, não sei, sabe que coisa. Aí só começaram a pensar, fazer para memória sua, ela morta. Então, para a gente só vai ser alguma coisa, ter alguma coisa quando somos mortas. Então é isso que eu tenho que pensar por mim. É isso.
Essas seriam as suas últimas palavras, Liliam? Ou você ainda quer falar alguma coisa?
Não, você quer traduzir? Ou falo as últimas coisas?
Não, pode. Se você quiser continuar, pode continuar.
Ok. Então, o que eu peço é de ter paciência. Sabe, a gente somos já com a mente muito destruídas. Sabe o que é? Todo dia, 10 homens, 30 homens em cima de você, falando que você não presta, falando que você não vale nada. É, você viver no inferno, como ela mesma falou. Abriram a perna da Adelina e meteram sal grosso na ferida dela. Ela era um paquete, a gente era um paquete viajando para um lado para o outro, sendo só usada. Então a gente precisa de tempo, dá tempo para a gente. Não é que mostra onde está as asas e empurra a gente do penhasco. Ao feminismo, é essa união, dessa abolição, dessa luta contra o modelo nórdico, a gente vencemos e fazemos juntas. Se ajuda realmente a sair. Não é opção, entenda a opção, opção de trabalho, de estudo, de um curso, de uma ajuda psicológica, de estar ali, de saber, de ligar e dizer assim, olha, você como está hoje? Isso vai custar você alguma coisa de perguntar uma coisa dessa para a gente? Precisamos só disso. E se conseguirmos fazer isso, vai dar seguranças para as outras, para ter as coragem de se mostrar e dizer: olha, fizeram isso comigo, eu estou aqui, eu não tenho medo. E, do mesmo tempo, vai ajudar essas mulheres a ser alguém. Mas, desse modo, só vai ter outras Adelinas. E é isso que tem que acontecer? Obrigada, Adriana, por esse momento.
De nada, Liliam. Obrigada a você. Okay, so Liliam's last words is more a question to us, not us as the European Network of Migrant Women, but us, organizations that support survivors or at least are in contact with survivor women. And she is asking us to open our eyes while these women are alive. And she really expresses, her lack of understanding as to why we would give the voices to these women when they are, when they are dead. Why do we have to remember these women? Why do we have to hold memorials for these women in the aftermath of the torture events and not while they are alive and have things to say? She really asks the audience, are we only, do we only have valor, how do you say that? Yeah, are we only worth it when we're dead? And then she says that Adelina just wanted a normal life. She wasn't asking for anything out of this world. She just wanted a normal job, a normal life, and she just wanted to be as free as the other women. So what she asks from us is patience, because the minds of prostituted women are destroyed. They need time to heal. They need time to get back on their feet. And they need time to recover from living in hell, because it's hell to be with over 20 to 30 men a day and to hear them, tell them again and again and again how worthless you are, how you are nothing. So yeah, also Liliam as an ending says that what survivor women need is, first of all, patience, but also, this kind of constant communication, asking, how are you today? How are you feeling? Because it takes a long time to recover, and we shouldn't be having to check in days before someone's death or when they are already dead. So I want to thank you, obrigada, Liliam, for the words and the strength that you gave us today. I don't know what to say, because this is really not the conventional thing. I just hope that by talking about this and by talking about what happened to her, that we managed here between the four of us to, to honor her memory and to honor the wish that she wanted for people to become her voice, so that there are no more Adelinas. So yeah, we will finish this memorial with Chiara's reading of, if I believe, something that Adelina wrote from her book, which she has translated, which is not an easy task. So, obrigada, Liliam. And a gente agora vai só ler extrato do livro da Adelina para terminar o evento. Se você quiser falar uma última coisa, me fala, me escreve, a gente pode fazer isso. E obrigada por ter dado a sua voz hoje. Obviamente que não foi fácil e você é uma mulher, tipo, magnífica e eu sinto muito te ver chorar assim e a gente vai continuar juntas nessa luta e você vai continuar aqui viva e com as suas asas crescendo mesmo, tá bom? Eu vou deixar a Chiara, então, ler o extrato. I will now give the floor to Chiara for her reading.
Thank you, Liliam. Grazie, Liliam. Grazie. I'm reading a poem written by Adelina, and which is in her book, her first book, Free from Prostitution. Freedom. I was afraid to laugh. I was afraid to cry. I was afraid to dream. But all that remains only a bad memory. And now I shout to the world that I'm free. I shout to all the women on the street, unite and rebel. Don't be afraid. I rebel, and now I'm free. I shout to the world. Cops are angels, and I shout, I love you, all the best. I cry, you are my angels. And this is extremely painful because she trusted Italian police, because Italian police freed her. But at the end, she was abandoned by them and betrayed by Italian institutions. But that was, her liberation and her freedom. And she said that to the other women because her dream was to help other women. So I'm reading now what Adelina dreamed, her dreams. That was a portion of her book in which a paragraph entitled My Dreams. If one day I had a lot of money, but as much as a Superenalotto prize, this is an Italian prize, a 6, which is the number to win a lot of money, I would invest a good part of it in a project to be able to really help those who live in need. Indeed, first of all, I would open a company in which to give work to those women like me have sought and are seeking in work a sort of normal life. Then again, a community, a shelter for battered women, and in this shelter, a shelter for dogs. How I love animals. Lonely and mistreated women, lonely and mistreated animals, having my dreams a paradise of their home for where to start again. But they are my dreams. So we would like that these dreams will come true, and we will do our best all together. And so I think that it's important to launch a positive message, a message of hope for all survivors and for all the feminists and activists out there. We need to be united because united we are stronger, and we need to honor Adelina's memory, just to do our best to protect survivors and to introduce a law like the Nordic model that can really protect our human rights and the human rights of the women and girls in the world against sexual exploitation.
Thank you, Chiara. Liliam,
Adriana?
quer falar alguma coisa como últimas
Sim.
palavras?
A Adelina, no seu último vídeo, ela falou que a gente tem que ser a sua voz, né? Peraí. Então, Então vamos ser a voz dela, e as pessoas têm que entender isso é a prostituição. Isso é a prostituição. Não é um trabalho, é uma tortura, é uma bomba com radiação que radia dentro de você, que ou eles te matam, ou você se mata com aquela doença dentro de você, que se chama tortura, prostituição, escravidão. E isso nós não deixamos passar como trabalho, porque a prostituição mata. E essa é a voz de Adelina, e que nós temos juntas que gritar por todo mundo. E obrigado, e tchau, Adelina. E
Liliam's last words for this event. She's referring to the last video that Adelina sent her friends. In the video, Adelina begged the women to be her voice and to continue to carry her message. So Liliam is continuing on that message, and she says, let's be her voice and let people know that prostitution is not a job, that prostitution is torture, prostitution is slavery, and that prostitution is a time bomb that is ready to explode within yourself at any given time and to eat you from inside. So the main message of Adelina was that prostitution kills, and this is the message that we should be carrying in our abolitionist fight, but also within the feminist movement. I think it's good to end the event on these words. As both of you were Adelina's friends, I think it's already very brave of you women to be here with us today. Thank you. Thank you for opening your hearts to us. We don't do this as a showcase, of pain. We do it so we can be Adelina's voice and to prevent... Sorry, go ahead, Chiara. Yes, and to prevent any kind of co-opting from the pro-prostitution lobby. This is not what Adelina wanted. This is not what she fought for, and this is definitely not what she died for. So thank you, obrigada to you too. And we will have other occasions to collaborate, but right now I really hope that your pain will be, reducing in the years to come. And I hope that you feel proud of your work as Resistenza, Femminista, but also as individual women for all the work that you do at Italian, but also international level. Eu estava só falando para Chiara e para você que eu sei que, enfim, que a gente convidou vocês, não foi para mostrar a dor de vocês, mas realmente para continuar carregando a mensagem da Adelina e para que a gente possa ser uma sorte, uma prevenção, né, para que o lobby tipo ENoMW e coisas assim, de que eles não podem utilizar a mensagem da Adelina, porque não foi para isso que ela deu a vida e não foi por isso que ela lutou todos esses anos, né? Então, vou deixar vocês ir e obrigada mais uma vez. Tchau, Liliam. Tchau, Chiara.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
obrigada. Tchau.
Tchau.
Liliam. I love you.
Me too.
Bye, everyone.